What is up, guys? You are back with Malakai Patterson and with another reaction video. This is the 5 worst serial killers ever. Let's get started. Say hey, Cam.
Hi.
Let's go.
Looking at who they are, what they did, why they did what they did, and where they are now. Lock your doors and keep a baseball bat nearby, because these are the worst serial killers ever.
A baseball bat? What a shock.
Number 5. Our first notorious killer is Kaptamar Shankariar, India's deadliest killer ever. During a 2-year period in the late 1970s, he killed a total of 70 people by using a hammer. His possible total is believed to be slightly higher than 70.
Oh, this is on
He used a hammer to strike people in the side of the head, and when captured, told authorities he felt pleasure from killing people. At the age of only 26 when he was captured, he was executed by hanging in Jaipur, India, on May 16, 1979. His last words were, "I have murdered in vain. Nobody should become like me." Yeah, solid advice there, buddy. At number 4 is a guy we already covered in the prison inmate video. But even serial killers don't like being left out. So here we go again. Pedro Rodrigues Filho was a Brazilian serial killer who reported his first urge to kill happening at the age of only 13. During a fight with an older cousin, he pushed the boy into a sugarcane press, almost killing him. At age 14, he murdered the vice mayor of Alfanaz because he had fired Filho's father for apparently stealing the school kitchen's food. Filho then went on to murder a school guard who he thought to be the real food thief. After fleeing his home, he hid in Sao Paulo, where he frequently burgled people and ended up murdering a drug dealer. Before he was 18 years old, Filho had committed 10 murders. Then he returned to his hometown and killed his own father, as his father had butchered Filho's mother with a machete, and Filho wanted revenge. After his father was killed, he cut out a piece of his heart, chewed it, then threw it away. Filho was eventually arrested on May 24, 1973 for his previous crimes. During his time in prison, he killed 47 other inmates. His total confirmed number of victims is 71, but Filho later claimed a total of over 100 victims. After 34 years in prison, Filho was released on April 24, 2007. On September 15, 2011, Filho was arrested again and would serve time for his accusations such as causing riots and holding people as prisoners. Besides the number of killings, Filho became notorious in Brazil for promising the murder of other criminals, such as Francisco de Assis Pereira, also known as the Park Maniac, another serial killer. So really, by getting rid of these other killers, Filho could be described as having somewhat a good heart. Pity the same can't be said for his father. At number 3 we have Daniel Camargo Barbosa. Like many other serial killers, he suffered a troubled childhood. His father was distant and his stepmother was abusive, often forcing him to wear girls' clothing as a punishment for misbehaving, which would cause him to be bullied. He started out his criminal life by raping young girls. Using his girlfriend as an accomplice, they would lure young girls back to their apartment where Barbosa would drug and rape them. He managed to do this a total of 5 times before being caught in 1964, where he was sentenced to 8 years in prison. When released from prison, he returned to his old rape habits, though in order to avoid future chances of being caught, he began to murder his victims when he was done with them. All of his victims were young girls, usually poor and in need of work. He would lure them to the outskirts of towns with the promise of giving them money, but rather than help them, he would strangle them, rape them, and stab them to death. He would leave their bodies in the woods for scavenging animals to feed upon, perhaps trying to dispose of the evidence. Eventually, in May of 1974, Barbosa was caught and imprisoned in Colombia for the rape and murder of a 9-year-old girl. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison, but managed to escape in 1984 and remain at large for nearly 2 years before being caught again. During the 2 years that he was free, Barbosa killed 54 more young girls. When recaptured, he was sentenced to just 6. He never finished his prison time, however. In 1994, another prisoner killed him. I'd say the other prisoner did the world a favor. At number 2, we have Pedro Alonso Lopez. As a child, Lopez was kicked out of his home after he was caught fondling with his younger sister. Lopez traveled to Bogota, the capital city of Colombia, where he became a member of the homeless community. During his time as a homeless child, Lopez smoked cocaine and was raped by at least 2 men. At age 21, Lopez was arrested for stealing a car. In prison, he was raped by 2 more men, and in retaliation, he killed his attackers with a makeshift knife. Upon release from prison, Lopez started to seek out young, poor girls as his victims. He made his way to Peru, where he would lure his victims to remote areas and then rape and murder them. He later claimed that he murdered dozens of girls during the mid to late 70s. Lopez was eventually caught and turned into the Peruvian police. However, the Peruvian police decided to deport him back to Colombia, where he could live as a free man. Lopez continued to murder, and by the late 70s had made his way to Ecuador, where girls started to go missing as well. In 1980, a street vendor named Carlino Ramon and a group of his peers called Lopez tried to lure a girl away from a busy market. They turned him into the police and he was put in prison. While in prison, Lopez confessed to killing 110 girls, and with his direction, the police were able to unearth 57 bodies. Lopez also claimed to have been responsible for around 200 more deaths in the neighboring countries of Peru and Colombia. On July 31st, 1981, Lopez pled guilty to the murders of 57 girls whose bodies had been found, and he was imprisoned in Ambato, where he was officially diagnosed as a sociopath. Like Barbosa, Lopez only received a sentence of 16 years in prison. On August 31st, 1994, Lopez was released from Garcia Moreno prison after serving just 14 years and was deported back to Colombia, where authorities there attempted to convict him of a 20-year-old murder case. Lopez ended up being declared insane and in 1995 was put in a psychiatric facility. Just 3 years later, in February 1998, he was declared sane and released under a $50 bail. Lopez then vanished. His whereabouts since then are unknown, but he is suspect in a fresh murder that has happened in Colombia in 2002. Oh well, that's good. This guy who claims to have 300 plus murders is walking the streets a free man. No, really. I'm sure he's not up to anything shady these days. And at number 1, we have the deadliest serial killer to ever live, Luis Alfredo Garavito. Garavito is a Colombian rapist and serial killer, also known as the Beast. Garavito apparently suffered physical and emotional abuse by his father. In his testimony, he described being a victim of sexual abuse as a young boy. In 1999, he admitted to the rape and murder of 140 young boys. However, the number of his victims, based on the locations of skeletons listed on maps that he drew in prison, could eventually exceed 300. Once captured, he was given the maximum penalty available in Colombia, which was 30 years. However, as he confessed the crimes and helped authorities locate bodies, they lowered his sentence to 22 years. In recent years, Colombians have felt anger and fear about him being approaching early release, feeling his sentence not sufficient punishment for his crimes. Garavito's victims were typically poor children between the ages of 6 and 16. He would approach them on the streets or countryside and offer them gifts or money. After gaining their trust, he would take the children for a walk, and when they got tired, he would rape them, cut their throats, and usually dismember their corpses. Garavito was captured on the 22nd of April 1999. He was found guilty in 138 of 172 cases, with the other cases still ongoing. The sentences for these 138 cases add up to 1,853 years and 9 days in prison. However, as already mentioned, Colombian law restricts this to just 30 years. In 2006, a local TV host named Piri interviewed Garavito. In this TV special, the killer excused his crimes and expressed intent to start a political career in order to help abused children. Now, how crazy is that? This guy's been found guilty of killing 138 children, a number which could possibly equate to 300 plus, but people are entertaining the idea of him working with abused children. On top of this, let us take a second to think about Colombia. Out of the 5 worst serial killers ever to live, 3 of them are from Colombia within the past 50 years. From the year 1970 until 95, a possible total of 800 children from Colombia and neighboring countries were killed by just 3 men. That must have been a pretty terrifying place to live during that time. Not only this, but the second worst serial killer in history has been released and his whereabouts are unknown. And in a few years, the worst serial killer of all time will also be released. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not visiting Colombia anytime soon. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like and subscribe. I will continue to make videos like this. Leave a comment if there are any other topics you would like me to cover. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.
This is Malakai Patterson and
Cameron Johnson.
signing off once again.